All right, welcome to 13.1 day one. Here's your problem of the day. Let's make sure volume's up. Okay, so again, problem of the day is solving equations. So we are going to split our problem down the middle. When doing equations, first thing you gotta do is get rid of parentheses. Parentheses are first. So I see is negative on the outside of the parentheses. This means it's a negative 1 times everything on the inside. So I'm going to multiply that negative 1 times c and that negative 1 times 6. I'm going to rewrite everything. So I'm going to bring this negative 5 down. I'm not touching it. Negative 1 times c. So 1 times anything it's itself. So it's literally going to be c and 6, but that negative is just going to change everything either from a negative to a positive or a positive to a negative. So that c is positive, so now it's going to be negative, and that 6 is positive, so now it's going to be negative. So now we have negative c and minus 6 or negative 6, same thing. Now we're going to get c all by itself. So next I am going to get rid of the constant near the variable. I'm going to get rid of this negative 6. To get rid of a negative 6, I have to add 6 to both sides. And those go away. I am left with negative c. And I have negative 5 plus 6. Signs are different, so I'm going to subtract them. 6 minus 5 is 1. Keep the sign of the larger number, and it is going to be a positive 1. Last step, there's a negative sign on that c. To get rid of that negative sign on the c, we have to divide by a negative 1. The negatives go away, divide by negative 1. So we are left with c equals negative 1, because a negative 1 divided by 1 is just 1, and a positive divided by a negative is a negative. So there is your final answer. Please take this time now to do this one on Nearpod, please. Hopefully you had enough time there. So remember, you split your problem down the middle. And you had to distribute that negative to both the m and the 4. They are both positive. Remember, it's a negative 1. So we're going to distribute both of those to those terms. So that negative 9 is going to come down. And remember, 1 times anything is itself. So we have m and 4. And now a negative times a positive is a negative, and a negative times a positive is a negative. So now we have negative minus m, negative m minus 4. So let's get rid of that negative 4. So we're going to, hopefully you added 4 to both sides. Those go away. Add 4. And then we have negative 9 plus 4. So the signs are different. So we are going to subtract them. 9 minus 4 is 5. And we're going to keep the sign of the larger number, and that is 9. And it's going to be a negative 5. We're left with negative m. Last step, we are going to divide both sides by negative 1. Because there's a 1 there. Negative 1m. Those go away. Divide by negative 1. We are left with m equals 5 divided by 1 is going to stay 5. A negative divided by a negative is a positive, so our final answer is 5. All right, hopefully these are getting somewhat easier and familiar for you. We are moving on to what is probably my favorite part of geometry. We are moving on to volume. We are going to be doing volume of a cylinder this week. In the following weeks, you're going to be doing a volume of cones and volume of spheres. These are my favorite because you are given an equation. You're given an equation, and all you have to do is plug the numbers into the equation, slap it all in the calculator, and you get your answer. So that is my favorite. There's a lot of calculator work. So make sure you have that calculator either up on Google, on Teams, you have a scientific calculator, or just on your school computer, there's a calculator. If you type in the search bar calculator, I pinned mine to the taskbar, so it stays here all the time. Okay, so sphere. So our steps are we're going to set up a formula. So your formula is always going to stay the same. That's the best part I love. It's always the same. So the formula, the volume for cylinders are always going to be pi times r squared times height. So now the pi and the r squared is going to get us the base, the circle part. It's going to get us the area of the circle, and then to get volume, we're going to take that circle and we're going to multiply by how tall this entire cylinder is. Okay, so we have pi r squared. Remember, r stands for radius. Radius is half a circle. So if I draw a circle, radius goes from the middle. Uh-oh, the worst part of my screen, it doesn't like me. Radius goes just to the side. So you want half the circle. So if you're given a circle and the line goes all the way across, this is not a radius. That is a Pokeball. This is a diameter. So we don't want diameters. We only want half the diameter, and half the diameter is a radius. So that brings us to our first example. So I'm going to zoom in pretty good, and I'm also going to rewrite the formula here. So remember, volume equals pi times r squared times height. So remember, radius is just half of the circle. So look at this circle. Does that line go all the way across, or does it go half? Hopefully you answered it goes all the way across. So we don't want 10. 10 is not going to go in for r. And actually, let's start rewriting our equation. So volume equals pi. What are we going to use for pi? That is a special number. We don't need the entire long number. We just need what we normally use for math, and that is going to be 3.14. So I'm going to rewrite this as 3.14. Okay, now I'm going to be multiplying that times r squared. Now I don't have a radius here. This is a diameter, remember? Radius is only half. I can probably redraw this better now. Radius is half. We have what this is. We have a diameter, so we just need half of the diameter. So what is half of 10? 10 divided by 2. That's right, it's 5. So we got 3.14 times 5, because that was our radius. Oh, but don't forget that squared. Be 5 squared. Last but not least, we need the height. How tall is this cylinder? I should say, how long is it? So from circle to circle, how long is the cylinder? And you're right, it is 11. So now we're going to shove all of this in the calculator. It's going to be great. But actually, before we do that, so the calculator doesn't get confused, because sometimes you have to type in special stuff for that 5 squared. So let's do the squared first. Let's solve this squared. So I'm going to rewrite the equation again. So V equals 3.14 times, what's 5 times 5? 25 times 11. So now I'm going to shove all this in the calculator, so that way there is going to be no issues. So ready? Let's do, I'll put it over here. So I'm going to do 3.14. Some of you might be tempted to press, if you have the scientific calculator, some of you might be tempted to press the pi button. Is it right here? But that's going to give you the really long answer. Don't click this, please. Do not click pi. It's going to get you slightly different answers, because this is the actual number of pi, and it'll change your answer a little bit. So we are rounding pi to the hundredths place, which is 3.14. So don't use that button, please. Only sometimes they'll give you instructions to use it, but most of the time you won't. So 3.14 times 25 times 11 equals, there you go, that's it. Volume equals, it went away, 863.5. Oh, I guess I could have wrote it right here. 863.5. And that's it. We're done. All calculator work. You just got to find the pieces that go in the formula. So should we try one more? We got about 5 minutes left of my video. Let's see, there's a challenge problem over here. I just want to talk about it for a second. I'm not sure if it's in the Nearpod or not. But otherwise, this is only one example. We can move on to Nearpod. But for those of you watching just at home, here's a challenge problem. Does this look like a full cylinder to you? Or does it look like just half? It looks like the tube is chopped in half, right? So that tube is chopped in half. So if we were to get our answer like this one, what would I have to do to the volume if I chopped this cylinder in half? Oh God, that's ugly. If I chop this in half, what should I chop? What should I do to this number? Hopefully you guys said divide by 2. So if you divide by 2, then you would get the answer for this. The other challenge part, remember, it says 3.5, and that's for all the way across. But we only need half. So you'd also have to divide this by 2 before you did all your answers. So that's just going over the challenge one. All right, one more example. Here's a nice one. It does not, these I believe are on your Nearpod. So let's go. These are on your Nearpod, so you don't have to watch me do it unless you're watching at home. Here we go. So we need the volume, the formula, remember? So formula is volume equals pi times r squared times height. Or you can say pi equals pi r squared times pi times r squared times height. I guess we just say it like that. Pi r squared times height. So pi is 3.14, right? So we got 3.14. All right, what is my radius? Oh, look, does this go all the way across? No, this is only going halfway, so this is a radius, and so we don't have to mess with this number. So I'm just going to put it right into the equation. So I'm going to do times 6 squared times, how tall is this cylinder? How tall is it? It's 11. Good job. So now let's solve that 6 squared first, so that way we can type everything in the calculator and not worry about it. B equals 3.14 times 6 times 6. Good job, 36 times 11. Okay, get that handy dandy calculator. 3.14 times 36 times 11, done. 1,243. 1,243, I think it was a 0.44. And we're done. That's it. All right, there's 2 minutes left of this video, so I think I'm going to stop here so I don't get cut off on the next one. Just know, make sure the radius is just half the circle. If you have one that goes all the way across, remember to chop it in half. You only need half of it. So instead of 10, this is going to be 5. So every problem they're going to give you two numbers, and it's either going to give you the radius or the diameter. And remember, we want the radius for our equation. All right, let me know if you have any questions.